Good evening. My name is David Dickinson. I'm the Commissioner for ANC 3F01. Welcome.
Sally Gresham, ANC 3F04.
Mary Beth Ray, 3F3.
Andrew Molak, 3F05.
Pat Jakobczyk, 3F07.
Okay, so that means we have a quorum being 4 commissioners present. The agenda. So we'll move on to approval of the agenda. We have 2 agendas. We have a consent agenda and a regular agenda. So first we'll turn to the consent agenda. Are there any comments on the consent agenda?
Yes, I would like to move the TIPAD settlement agreement from the regular agenda to the consent agenda,
Okay.
because we gave proper community notice on that. And I would also, with Commissioner Mollett's agreement, move the resolution regarding relocation of Everett Street Ellicott bus stop to the regular for a little friendly amendments.
Some discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd also like to, I don't know where the July and September meetings approval would be. Would they be at the other business?
Other business, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
I'd also like to make some suggestions to the agenda. I'd like to propose that the presentation from Sidwell, which is item 10, that be moved up possibly to item 7 or so, just after the community open forum, in the interest of courtesy to our friend from Sidwell who needs to pick up his son from the airport. And I'd also like to note that with regard to item 11, we can keep it on the agenda. This is the Hearst Park project. I had hoped that representatives from DGS and DPR would be attending this evening and or at least provide me with a written report. Neither one of those, they're not attending and I don't have the report, but happy to have a conversation about the park project. I just want to give people a heads up that might be a shorter conversation.
Okay. And then we're also going, we have, let's see, we have Lieutenant Hughes here from the police. There she is.
Yes.
But she has to leave as well, so we're going to move that up right after we approve the agenda, and you can do a quick police report. Okay, so.
Wait. Hang on.
You move yours.
There were some folks maybe from the 5,000 Club that wanted to come and talk with Lieutenant Hughes about the situation there. I don't know.
To 7?
I don't see anybody here.
I'm here from Politics and Prose.
Okay,
Oh.
beautiful. Thanks.
And we exchanged emails about that this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, so that means on the consent agenda, we're taking the Everett Ellicott bus stop off, but we're putting TIPAD settlement agreement on. Are there any objections to that amendment to the consent agreement, consent agenda? Okay, so then I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. When we approve the consent agenda, we approve the resolutions that are on the agenda, and they're noted as approved unanimously. So all in favor? Is there a second?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, on the consent agenda now is just the TIPAD
Just
settlement?
TIPAD.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor of the consent agenda as amended?
Aye.
Okay. Passes 7-0-0.
And I have this here for your signature. Okay.
Then we will approve the regular agenda, which will now read police report, commissioner announcements, committee reports, community open forum, then Sidwell, then Kuwait, then merch, then other business.
Then Hearst, no Hearst.
And then Hearst.
Then Hearst,
First, if someone shows up.
Yep.
Okay.
and then the minutes at the end.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. So now we'll move to the police report.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Lieutenant, if you would go to that mic so that it will stream online for us too, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, just to be clear, the microphone is only for the recording. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
broadcasting.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay. Lieutenant Corinne Hughes, came from PSA 207, which is down the lower end, GW. I just came to PSA 203 in June. Okay. But for PSA 203, we're down in just about every crime. We have a 50% decrease in crime compared to 30 days. This 30 days compared to 30 days of the previous year. I know we had a little spike in theft from autos that I got a phone call on Macomb, so we increased our patrols in that area.
You said theft from autos?
Theft from autos,
Okay.
yes. But I'll take any questions.
No,
that you
actually, no,
have.
I'm sorry. What's that?
First, commissioners. we'll start
Sure,
with-
thank you for your attendance this evening and giving us an update. I don't know if I spoke with you or I actually saw you on the street, but I'm a parent over near Hearst Elementary, and we had made a request near the start of the school year to have a patrol officer in that area just to enforce traffic laws, including at Van Ness and 37th, 38th, along with, I think, Upton and 37th, 38th. So first, thank you, because I know that officers were there and the Hearst community was very appreciative. I'd also had made a request at the same time for some additional enforcement at Reno Road and Van Ness because of the new presence of the Murch Elementary School and a lot of pedestrian traffic and car traffic, and now with the Beach Drive renovation, there's additional traffic pressures on Reno, and as I'm sure you well know, and Connecticut. So I would just respectfully ask if there's another opportunity to perhaps more periodically, not necessarily 5 days in a row, but just some spot enforcement in those intersections, just to let people know you're there would be appreciated.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gresham?
I have nothing right now.
Yeah, two things along the lines of what Commissioner Dickinson was saying. We've had a problem at Fessenden in Connecticut with kids who are walking to school, and it's kind of a complicated intersection. But I just wondered if you all could add a squad car every so often there and remind people.
And is that in the morning?
Yes,
Okay.
during the walk to school.
Okay.
And
Eight to
morning
9.
rush. Yeah. And then also, I wondered if you had any news about the home break-in on 29th Street. It was about maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was 29th Street near the intersection of Audubon Terrace. And an elderly couple lived there. The lady who, she's 91 years old, and the guy tried to tie her up. It was just horrifying.
Right.
And I just wondered if you all had made any progress on getting to the bottom of that.
I would have to talk to the detectives in reference to that.
Who
I
is
do
the
know that
contact?
I don't know the detectives, but I'll give you my card and I'll email you the information. But I do know that she very feisty, and that she would be able to recognize him because, to my understanding, she claims that it hangs out in the area, maybe in the woods over there. So, but I do need to get an update in reference to that because I was actually working on when that occurred.
Okay. Well, yeah, I understand that the dogs, there were 2 dogs there, and the dogs would normally react to somebody, but the dogs didn't react to the guy. So there was a sense that there was some kind of familiarity. So.
Right. Well, she said that she had seen this guy before. So
Yeah, okay.
we should be closing it. I just have to talk to the detectives.
Okay. So I should follow up with you by email.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything?
Yeah. The 5,000 block of Connecticut Avenue. My understanding is that despite a few interventions, calls to 911, police officers coming and actually removing somebody from the street, my understanding is that the problem persists. I guess my take from the business owners is that there's one gentleman there that does seem to be homeless, that I haven't seen him in the last couple of nights, but basically sleeps in that little niche right in front of Politics and Prose. And then during the day, a bunch of his friends come there to hang around with him. And they drink as the day goes on. And, you know, a group of 5 or 6 of them sort of shouting at at the pedestrians walking by isn't nice for the business owners who know that their customers are being harassed and their customers are complaining to the business owners. The guy in the cleaners gave me these stories about a bunch of, you know, customers coming in saying that they're starting to get nervous coming and walking up and down the street there. I'm not sure exactly what can be done. I know that the homeless gentleman was removed one day, but seems to come back, and so what, I mean, maybe somebody can.
This is the one with the card?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. I wouldn't, in my experience, and I know all 3 of the gentlemen by name as
You
well.
want to have her come up? You wanna-
Yeah.
That's fine. Would come on up to the microphone.
Sorry, thank you.
So my name is Emily. I'm a manager of Politics and Prose, and Glenn.
What's your last name? I'm sorry.
It's Bedford, Bedford. 3 guys, Glenn, Kevin, and Melvin. Kevin's the homeless one. He got kicked out of Regency House, as I understand it. But it started with Glenn. Kevin isn't the instigator. I think he came later. And it is these guys who, you know, live in this housing development, and they come and they drink gin on our bench all day. The nice guys, they're just alcoholics. And I feel frustrated because I've reached out to the Regency House, to the management. Is there a social worker there who's providing support? Melvin is a veteran. Are we reaching out to the VA to get him support? I don't think they're violent. I think they're people with a problem. And I feel frustrated because it shouldn't be that we're calling the police on them. They should have help, not, they're not criminals as far as I can tell. But we do get a lot of complaints, and it is a problem. And there's talk of taking our benches away, which would be bad for the community to me, because a lot of people use those benches.
And they start there, but they make their way down. They're sitting on the Bucks, the little porch by Bucks by some point in the day, just shouting to people as they walk by.
And I've brought them water because they're too drunk to stand. I've called ambulances because they're passed out and you can't get them to sit up. It feels like it's a problem that, I don't know if it can be addressed by the police or it can be addressed by someone getting them some real help, because
We can definitely address the drinking on the bench. So I'm going to make sure that we send somebody past there and address the drinking on the bench. But to my understanding, we have
That's what I was going to say.
reached out with a lot of services to all 3 of these guys, and can't make them take the services. So that's my understanding through my officer.
So, I mean, they're not homeless, the 2 that are living at.
Kevin is, though, yeah.
Kevin is, one of them is, the ones that are living at Regency House are not. So,
But we can definitely address the drinking on the bench.
Drinking and harassing passersby.
Yes, and harassing. We definitely will address
so
that.
my understanding is Brad told me that he's called 911. The recommendation, somebody's recommendation, I think Commander Gresham's recommendation was that we call 911.
Every time.
You should.
Every time.
Yes.
And so that's been done a couple of times, and officers have come out and spoken to them, and, so. Okay. This is not new.
Well, is the bench private or public?
It's private. The problem is half the time they sit on crates from the CBS, just 10 feet down. So my feeling is if we take the benches away, we just get some crates and the same problem, because there's a liquor store and a CBS that both sell alcohol. And I think that's, to me.
So whose property is it?
It's ours, it's Politics and Prose. So if you think...
Oh, it's Nick Gill.
Wait a minute, isn't it public
Nick Gill.
space?
The benches belong to the bookstore,
Right, but
but not the sidewalk.
your benches are in the public space.
Yeah.
So it's public space
I
with
would
your
defer to you on
benches.
that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we can address the drinking.
Yeah.
Definitely address the drinking.
Have you all tried calling Friendship Place?
No.
For Kevin, you mean?
For
the one
Kevin,
who's
for the
homeless.
homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't just do homeless things. They actually have a very well organized veterans outreach.
Well, they have an outreach program.
And,
Right.
It's Friendship Place.
Friendship Place, yeah.
You know, you can Google it and
Yeah.
find it.
It's
If,
right
you know,
over on
I think
Wisconsin.
Andrea probably has the link.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that would be great.
And it's, you know, they're very skilled at working with people like that. We rely on them a lot for some of the homeless issues that we have up in Van Ness.
Yeah.
It doesn't always solve it, but,
Right.
you know, it's another resource.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's what I'm looking for.
Is this the during the evening time?
I think it depends more on when they get checks. It's like a lot of days in a row when there's money, and then they'll be gone for a week when there's not money, and then you kind of see it.
But the majority of time, what is it?
Evening,
Maybe, could I
day,
ask,
day to evening.
could you
yeah.
guys take that
Yeah,
offline?
of course.
So nothing else? Could I ask you to just give your contact information to the community as well?
Sure. My email address is CORINNE.Hughes, that's HUGHES, and my cell phone number is 202-615-8803. And I'll leave some cards if anybody want any business cards.
Okay, great,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily.
Let me just ask, are there any questions for the lieutenant from people in the audience?
Well, actually, I have one question that I forgot that a constituent asked. This is not crime or homeless, but I have gotten requests from a couple of the apartment buildings where people are parking into the alleyways or into their driveways going into their parking garages. They're crossing the 5-foot line that you're supposed to park back. I know this is not a huge issue, but they've asked, should they call the police? I mean, I've asked them to call 311
Yes.
from the office of the mayor, but they referred me to call the police and report it.
Yes.
Okay. So you will send someone out, and what do? Do you give them a ticket?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
311, and we'll come out and take it.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, or you shoot me an email.
Okay.
And I'll let my come out.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move now to commissioner announcements and updates. Since we have such a full agenda, I'll ask my colleagues to try to keep it brief. I'm not looking at you.
Yeah, last time.
You went a little crazy.
Yeah, well, okay. Mary Catherine,
Commissioner Dickinson, why don't you start?
Jeez, thanks, Commissioner.
pressure.
And with that,
No pressure.
well, I think I'll save my comments regarding Hearst Park project until the end, but I will note that since the September 8th DGS DPR meeting, there have not been any additional park planning meetings. If people are still curious about the general status of the planning phase, again, DGS has their website, and there's a construction link and then a sublink to park projects. As I announced at the last meeting, DGS and DPR are planning to do a survey. Still to be determined when the date of that will be. The point of the survey would be to solicit input on whether a pool should be there. I believe that they will be asking that, and then also the potential location, 3 different potential locations of the park. So when I know more, I'll let the folks know and certainly put that on the ANC website and put it on the community listservs. I'll skip the Sidwell update. We have some Kate Lindsay from Sidwell tonight. We also have Judy Corsillo, excuse me, from Wilson High School, so I'll skip that. And I assume somebody else is covering the crossing, the street.
Oh, Mary Beth
event.
mentioned it,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Wow, very
Wow.
All right,
good.
in and out. Everybody else.
I don't think I'm going to top that because I have 5, but I'll read fast. The Friends of Forest Hills Playground hosted their annual Halloween party at the Forest Hills Park and Playground on Saturday, October 29th. The party was a huge hit yet again, and they raised the most money yet. in donations. It must have been the fabulous weather, big turnout, and all hands on deck by the friends. Van Ness Main Street updates. And to continue the Halloween theme, no witch's hat this time, but actually, I lied. The Van Ness Main Street sponsored political lies. Okay, the Van Ness Main Street sponsored the Van Ness Merchant Halloween Open House, first time ever, on the same Saturday, the 29th, with a huge community turnout. The Forest Hill Park party paraded costume kids down to Connecticut Avenue, and they went to all the businesses for more treats from the participating businesses. I hope these two Halloween fun community events become an annual coordinated effort in the coming years. By Halloween.
Do you have a pilgrim hat under there, too?
I'm going to have to donate it to you guys. The Van Ness Streets has completed the first phase of the streetscape improvements at the Albemarle Corner businesses along our Connecticut Avenue strip. Phase 2 improvements in 2017 will include new signage, exterior lighting, and new surrounding concrete paving areas at the Diplomat Cleaners area. So many thanks to Travis Price Architects and their contractor for making this happen. Soapstone Market. Soapstone Market, our new community specialty grocery store, deli cafe, and gathering place at the Park Van Ness is now open for business. Thanks to the owners of the establishment for moving into our hood, Tracy Standard and John Fielding, big shout out. The market is open from 7 to 10, plus or minus, every day of the week. Please go check out this fabulous new store and buy. Spalina Pasta House. Fabio and Maria Drabocci and their construction team are working very hard on their new pasta house at Park Van Ness on the other side of Soapstone Market. The brown paper in the windows is scheduled to come off in mid-December. And what a thrill and yummy in the tummy that will be for our hood's growing eatery establishments. Thank you, Fabio and Maria, for choosing Van Ness for your fourth restaurant. AUWAMU Mini Park. We have 3 new shiny black park benches and 2 new trash cans, 1 recycling, 1 trash, at the Wyndham Place Mini Park behind the AUWAMU building across the street from Calvert Woodley. So a big shout out and thank you to American University, Andrew Huff, Mike Mastrada, and their installation crew, along with Barbara and Eve Berman, who donated the memorial bench in honor of Howard Berman, husband, father, and nature lover. Please go check it out and sit on them for the lovely fall, along with any homeless.
Let's see. First of all, I just want to say, you think she only has that hat for Halloween, but she carries it with her all the time. And Spalina and Soapstone Market were also written up in Washingtonian magazine. We were in the, kind of news,
Yep.
and things are really getting hot or cool or something like that in Van Ness. So that was very exciting. Okay, so I have a bunch of announcements, but they're all short. So the first is that the National Park Service is planning basically an assessment to figure out what kind of renovation they're going to do of the Nature Center and the stable. And I have a letter about that if anybody is interested. There's actually a meeting tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock that I'm going to go to, which is a scoping meeting. There is an email address if people are interested in commenting and submitting recommendations. And I will, maybe, Rachel, you could scan this and put it on our website. And then that way if people want to follow up, I know a lot of people use that facility, and it's a wonderful asset to have in the neighborhood.
And that meeting point?
Tomorrow morning at 10. Let's see. Okay, somebody mentioned the Crossing the Street project. So that is Thursday. Today's Tuesday, 2 days. Thursday night at UDC. This is the Crossing the Street it's sort of a take on Art All Night in connection with the Office of Planning, the Kresge Foundation, and UDC. So there is, I think there's going to be some kind of interactive painting project. There'll be a fashion show and various other sort of hands-on art type projects. So it should be a fun time, Thursday evening, 6 to 11 p.m. I'm not really sure what else to expect, to be frank, but check it out.
You can do the website, and it's got a list of the events. Crossing the Street website.
Our executive director of Van Ness Main Street is not able to be here tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and cover her announcements. The Van Ness Main Street fundraiser last Saturday night was just a huge success, and I want to thank all our participants and all our sponsors. We just really had a beautiful evening at Park Van Ness. President Mason from UDC was there, along with Michelle Forcheau. I saw Michelle a second ago. I think there she is. Spolina and Soapstone Market donated the food. Calvert Woodley donated wine. And Commissioner Gresham donated flowers. It was just a really wonderful evening. So thanks to all who were there and who sponsored. We made about $7,500 net. This is very good. Let's see. Saturday, November 26th. So that must be the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Is Small Business Saturday. So come shop and dine in Van Ness and support our local businesses. The next Jazz at VN is Tuesday, November 29th. That would be the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, 5 to 7 p.m. at La Ligura's. If you haven't been to Jazz at VN, please come. It's a lot of fun and a nice way to see neighbors and hear good jazz. My almost last announcement. We are hoping to work with UDC and to have a holiday pop-up in Van Ness called Made in DC. So this will be in the UDC building. Everybody knows where Acacia Bistro is on Connecticut Avenue. To the left of that is the Van Ness Main Street office. To the left of that is where we're going to have the holiday pop-up. And we're really excited. We've had 43 vendors apply to be part of this. So Teresa and a couple other people are working to sort of curate and decide what will be there. But every merchant that will be featured in our pop-up will make things in DC. So it's really, really a cool opportunity, I think, to feature what makes our city special. So December 10th and 11th, and then the second day on the 11th will be holiday sing-along and toy drive. The Van Ness Main Street website is launched. Please check it out, vannessmainstreet.org. And finally, Malachy asked me to just give you a heads up. We've been talking about proposing a Van Ness Main Street special project. This would fall outside of the requirements of a grant. But the idea is that because this serves all members of the community, we would do something visual down near the metro and basically the Connecticut Avenue corridor between Van Ness and Albemarle. So one thing that we're talking about doing is planters with pretty flowers and plants to enhance the beauty of our neighborhood. We're also talking about exploring some public art and some wayfinding, although those would probably take more time and a more sort of community-driven decision process. So anyway, I just wanted to tee that up. We're going to be asking for $25,000. I met with the Office of Planning on Friday, and we had a measuring tape out to figure out where these planters could go. Commissioner Gresham is working with her committee and some other people to figure out how big the planters can be and how high. There are lots of restrictions, as you can imagine, so we don't obstruct, pedestrians or line of sight. So we appreciate support and thoughtful research that's going on behind the scenes. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullen?
I have nothing.
I have 3 quick announcements. The first is that pavement restoration work along Linnean from Tilden Street to Upton Street is scheduled to commence later this week. Signage was actually posted earlier today regarding parking restrictions along the roadway. This work will be conducted between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So please keep in mind this construction for both parking and traffic routines. It's estimated this work will take about 28 days to complete, weather permitting. And I want to give a special thanks to DDOT, specifically Andrew Kaufman there, and local neighborhood residents, specifically Karen Ford, for their work getting this important repaving project moving. Additionally, later this week, UIP will be ensuring work for their Pepco vaults along Connecticut Avenue starting Thursday or Friday. They'll be vibrating some metal piles into the ground. It's a bit less noisy than the pile driving that occurred earlier this summer and spring, but residents might hear some of the equipment. The duration for this work is 4 working days, and the hours will be between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m., and they expect to have all this work completed before the Thanksgiving holiday. And then finally, last week I met with representatives from the Kuwaiti Embassy to discuss the vacant lot adjacent to their chancery on Tilden. At this time, they have no immediate plans to develop the lot. However, they are engaged in some discussions to bring on a project management firm to begin the discovery and design process next year. I want to stress that there are no immediate plans. There'd be years before they even broke ground, but there is some things starting to get moving. When a firm is selected, the embassy has pledged to engage the community and listen to its input as it begins the discovery stage. So please stay tuned. I will share details as I have them, and will be involved with those community meetings as well. I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Chris Collins from Holland and Knight. I don't know if he's here yet, but we'll see him later today for helping set up this meeting, and to Ambassador Al Sabah for personally sitting down and listening to our neighborhood's concerns. So thank you.
Okay, I have a few. First, I want to congratulate my colleagues for their re-election this month. We were all re-elected. All of us who stood were re-elected, and even though we were all running unopposed, I think it's still a nice vote of confidence from the community that large majorities actually took the time to physically vote for each of us. So thank you to the community, and congratulations to my colleagues, and to the new commissioner who was elected from 3F03, Naomi Rutenberg. So we'll meet her when she's sworn in for our January meeting. I also want to remind people that it is your responsibility to care for the trees in the public space in front of your home or business. So just be aware of that. And then also to note that work has started on the Yuma sidewalk extension that we voted on last month. This is to extend the sidewalk up Yuma to the corner so that pedestrians can cross safely at a corner with a crosswalk instead of having to walk across jaywalk across the middle of the street. And then finally, I want to announce to the community that starting with our January meeting, ANC 3F will be meeting no longer here at Forest Hills, DC, but we will be moving to space on the UDC campus. We're very pleased that UDC is going to be hosting us on the campus, and we think it's a great way for the community to come it's a more central location within our ANC, and it's a great way for the community to come in and experience the UDC campus and get familiar with the campus. That said, I want to make a special give a special thanks to Forest Hills of DC for having hosted us so graciously for the last 4 years here in this room. So that's all. Nothing else? Nothing else? Then we will move on to the community open forum. So this is the point at which we open the floor to members of the community. Come on up to the mic, speak about anything that's not on our regular agenda. But again, I'm going to ask that people keep their comments short, 2-3 minutes max, please. So the floor is yours. Ian, did you have something you wanted to?
Hey, I'm Ian Maggard. I'm the Ward 3 liaison with Mayor Bowser's office. One quick announcement. Mayor Bowser will be just down the street from here on Thursday. She'll be attending the Cleveland Park Citizens Association. Everyone is welcome to come out. It's 7:30 at the Congregational Church, which is 3400 Lowell Street Northwest.
Which day is that? I'm sorry?
Thursday. That is it. Feel free to reach out if you have any community issues or concerns. I'll leave my cards on the back table.
Ian,
Yep.
can you give us any update on the 32nd and Albemarle Street sidewalk improvement projects?
They were supposed to start already, so I'll have to follow up on what the delay is.
Okay.
But it was supposed to.
Right, I thought you had announced last month that it was going to start in a couple of weeks, but we've seen no progress.
So yeah, I'll follow up on that and I can get back to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
As we're transitioning to the next community member, I forgot to announce during the community announcements that the Cleveland Park Library has relocated here in Van Ness. Somebody up here probably knows the address of the library now here in Van Ness. They had a ribbon cutting on, I believe it was Halloween Day, October 31st, and so they're up and running. It's a pretty neat kind of a pop-up library, if you will, but it's a very beautiful space, so I encourage people to check it out. I think it's 4500 block of Connecticut on the west side of Connecticut. Sorry, no, there's one. Speak from the community, Michelle.
Michelle Pouchot with the University of the District of Columbia, and you've heard a lot of what we're doing with and in the community and looking forward to hosting your meetings, and we were just talking about maybe doing a tour of the Student Center before that first meeting, so let's talk about that.
Great.
A lot of exciting things going on, especially this week on campus. We've updated our website. Please check it out at www.udc.edu. Brand new look and feel. We're still reconnecting some of the pages and going through some of the tweaks, but we're really excited about this next stage of improving our web presence and hopefully getting information out to you in a better way. This is our homecoming week, and so there's a lot of fun stuff on campus. On Monday, we coronated our new queen. On Wednesday, we have our first women's basketball game, and another part of our Big Read series, and Cory Booker is going to be on campus in the auditorium. We've already got over 700 people registered to come. That's Senator Cory Booker, so please come out for that. Still more room. That's this Wednesday at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Boy, I've been hunting around trying to find that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you click on the site, you'll see it on the
It's in the theater, right?
In the theater.
Yeah.
Right. That's it, in the theater. Also, tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be down in the Wilson building, so again, you see us, in the atrium doing a food tasting. And so we'll have the food from the UDC farm and Green Roofs for you to taste. So if you're downtown near Pennsylvania Avenue and 14th Street between 1 and 3, please come and check it out. On Thursday, we fashion show, and there's a movie premiere in the law school called Pilot Era. And it's about the debate about what happens with airplane accidents. And of course, there'll be a legal discussion regarding that. That's at 6 o'clock. And at the end of the month, on the 30th, we have another one of our Big Read series with Will Haygood. His new book is Showdown. It's about the nomination of Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court. And he also wrote The Butler. And again, a free event. And in December, we start with World AIDS Day. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, please, that'd be great.
Let's wait 1 minute.
Oh.
Okay. Did you have something?
Sorry.
Hello, I'm Marlene Berlin from Forest Hills Connection, and many of the things and announcements that have been discussed you can find in the Forest Hills Connection, which is our community e-magazine. I have a question for the commissioners. The resolution for the bus stop was taken off the consent agenda. Is it off the agenda completely?
No. Move to the regular agenda.
Oh,
we'll
it's
discuss
moved to,
it.
okay, because that wasn't clear when you went through the agenda, because that wasn't
Oh,
one of the.
Yeah, I think
the
we did
items
miss
that
it.
you
That I read
mentioned.
off,
So,
okay. So-
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to announce your thing at Torrance?
The
You can
Bazaar.
put the
Yeah.
mic down, so.
The Forest Hills Connection is having a holiday bazaar on December 3rd from 2 to 5. You can also find information out about that in the Forest Hills Connection. And I can also leave my card on the back table about that. And it should be a really exciting and interesting, and a lot of interesting vendors. So please come out.
Where is it?
2900 Albemarle Street. Thank you.
Just 1 second. We'll move to grants in just a minute. Is there anyone else that has an announcement or something that they want to raise in the open forum? Okay, so we'll move on then to committee reports. Sorry, I think I did that slightly out of order. But we'll move on to committee reports now, starting with Parks and Trails.
The Soapstone, Melvin Hazen Parks and Trails Committee did not meet in November. Our next meeting will be the first week of December. I think that the week of the 4th, I believe, is that Sunday? We haven't finalized the date, but once it is final, I'll put it on the website. Everyone will have notice.
It's the 5th, Monday.
Is it the 5th? Well, the week starts on the 4th.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I don't have a report from the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, so we'll move to the Grants Committee, and we're going to hear from, sorry, tell me your name again? Judy Corsillo is going to make a brief presentation on an application for a grant.
Can I just ask a question? When is the next meeting for streets and
Has
sidewalks?
not been set.
Okay.
Welcome, Judy.
So if you would just do a quick summary of what's in there, and then we'll.
Okay, so I'm Judy Corsillo. I'm with the Wilton, I'm a member of the Wilton PTSO and also the Wilton Track Booster Club, a parent organization that supports the track team, the cross-country, indoor track and field, and outdoor track and field teams at Wilton High School. We are put in a grant application to ask the ANC to support the Penley Tiger Run, which is our main fundraising event. This will be our 3rd annual, and it's scheduled for April 2nd, Sunday, April 2nd, 2017. It's a great community building event. It's a 5K race that is run by members of the Wilson community as well as the greater neighborhood and actually people from all across the city. Ryan Steve's been involved in it. Mary Che ran in our race last year. We're trying to make it a big, fun, healthy, exciting community activity. We had 300 people the first year. We're hoping to have 500 people this year for the event. We're asking for a grant for $4,900. The event itself costs about $17,000 just to put on. Unfortunately, about $10,000 of that goes to the Metropolitan Police Department for security. Another $900 goes to VDOT. So there are a lot of sunk costs with the event, and this is a fundraiser, so we are trying to raise money above and beyond that $17,000 to give back to the teams. We're asking, because we know the ANC can't cover things like police department and DDOT costs, we are asking for funding for the timing company, which is about $2,000, for the race t-shirts, which is about $2,000, for the EMTs, which is about $400, also for awards and for bibs and safety pins. So I've given you a detailed grant request along with the budget and how we will be spending the money. Just want to say, as a resident of ANC 3F, moved into the neighborhood 18 years ago, and when we moved in, my husband and I thought there's no way we're going to be able to stay because once our kids are school age, we're going to have to leave because of the schools. And we've been so thrilled that the DC Public Schools have improved so much in this community and throughout the city. And we're proud parents of a child at Beale Middle School and a runner at Wilson High School, and we think it's really wonderful to raise money for the high school and to support the high school. We think it benefits the entire community for Wilson High School to be as strong as it is. It's got an amazing running program, an amazing coach, and about 200 students a year who participate in these 16. So we think it's a really, really worthwhile cause for the ANC to support. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the proposal.
Thank you. We're not going to get into the details of it tonight. What we'll do is we accept the application tonight. We refer it to our grants committee, and then the grants committee will work with you to answer any questions that we have from the commission, and then we will vote on the request, vote on the application next month.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thank you.
Can we ask
I don't want to
questions?
get into it tonight.
Okay, we can't ask questions. All right,
You can do it offline, but I don't want to do it tonight in the open meeting.
okay.
I'm available by email, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for taking the time tonight and for working so hard for Wilson High School.
Thank
Really
you for taking
appreciate
the
it.
time to
Yep.
review the proposal.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the presentation by Sidwell Friends on the Washington Home Fund.
Excuse me, we moved this bus stop thing off.
Yeah, it goes,
Where did we move
it goes
it
to the end.
to last?
That was the deal, I'm afraid.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going back in where Ty Pad was, but.
I'm Katie Lindsay. I'm the assistant head of school at Sidwell Friends. I want to begin by thanking my neighborhood association for its support for our application for zoning. We were unanimously approved by the zoning board, which is such a rarity that we're ecstatic. And that really was because of the private and public partnership that we had with the neighborhood and with the commission itself. So thank you all for your support. A number of people have come to Sidwell and said what is happening with the Washington Home. As a number of you may know, the Washington Home experienced a lawsuit that took several months to be addressed by Judge Grigsby, and they found in favor of the Washington Home only about 2 weeks ago. So that has that prompted us when the lawsuit began to suspend having the architects work on the project because frankly we didn't know if or when we were going to be able to close. So the project is now approximately a year behind schedule. That does not mean we aren't going to close. Our plan is to close on December 15th as scheduled. But it does mean that we won't be moving our lower school and we won't start construction on the project in March as we had hoped. So we're looking optimistically towards a year from now. We intend to use the property. We do not want it to remain vacant. We may use it for classes for our middle schoolers or a variety of things that we are investigating in terms of middle and upper school so that it does not appear vacant. because we know that it needs to be maintained, we will make sure that it is also maintained. So it'll be very quiet in the neighborhood, I hope, for everybody for the next year, without the traffic, without the issues around carpools, without the construction trucks. It may lull people into thinking that we're not going to do something, but we are intending, hopefully, to move our lower school probably 18 months to 2 years from now instead of starting right away with the hopes of going in the fall. So I wanted to keep everybody up to date, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a few questions. Ms. Lindsay, first, thanks again for coming this evening and continuing to keep the community and the ANC informed. So I was just trying to piece together the schedule, if you will, or the calendar for you now. So if you close, these are just approximations, I believe, but if you close this December, then it might be a year from December or so.
Yeah, the big setback for us was when the lawsuit began, we really had to suspend fundraising for the project because we really didn't know. We couldn't go to donors and ask them to make a gift to a program we weren't actually sure was ever going to materialize because it could have gone either way for so long. And so we've now ramped back up into the fundraising piece. So it's really, frankly, predicated on how quickly the school is able to achieve the goals it requires in order to meet some benchmarks to break ground.
Okay. So I was just trying to get a feel for when the lower school, theoretically, the soonest it could
Probably
open.
2 years.
Probably 2 years or so.
2.5 years.
Okay.
Then what we've looked at in the construction is that it's a minimum of 18 months. So if we bump it a year, we're probably talking 2.5 years out. We're going to take the opportunity now that we can and take a little breathing room because, as those of you who have tracked this with us know, we had no idea that Washington Home was even going to become available. So it came kind of out of left field as an opportunity for the school that, because of its adjacency, we really felt we could not afford not to look at seriously. But it really was not on our radar to buy 5.7 acres and to start this whole project. And it has prompted us to begin a fairly comprehensive strategic plan and a full-blown master plan for the campus. So I think that really what we're looking at is a minimum of a year for that effort, and then we're going to start while at the same time doing some substantial fundraising. So that in mind, depending upon how the fundraising really goes, we will be able to really launch probably a year, 18 months from now in terms of just mobilizing.
Right. Let me ask a question again about the occupancy that'll occur in later December, and maybe you could describe that a little bit more as to whether the parking lots will be used there, whether the middle school and upper school, or if they have periodic classrooms. I think that there have been a discussion about fencing in the Washington Home. Can you comment on that?
If the building is not being used and the parking lot's not being used, what we would do is gate it so that you couldn't have access in off hours, because we're acutely aware of the fact that we do not want it to become a convenient nuisance.
Right.
The interesting thing is we think that there might be an opportunity to mitigate some of the traffic and the carpooling issues that we've talked about by using the parking lot in the morning and the afternoon to get the middle school off and out of the neighborhood on 37th Street by using that driveway. But we really don't know until we get in how that will look and how that will play out. But we do know that if we don't plan to fully occupy the space, that we would put in gates so that people could not get onto the property.
And you and I have spoken about this, so it's not a mystery, but I just want to assure the community if the gated approach develops, that we would still stay in touch. You would stay in touch with us about the aesthetics of that.
We're really not trying to do anything that is unsightly. We're really doing something that would minimize the ability of cars or trucks to get into that service area and into that turnaround driveway under the Fortishare. So the way to really do that is to create a fairly simple armband type rod, so you really wouldn't even see it. It would be at hip height, but it wouldn't allow cars to get in without having substantial damage.
Okay.
So our goal really would be to go back to the neighborhood and walk them through what we were thinking as a interim strategy. We did come up with a fairly elaborate fence design. but it requires the entire property being fenced. We really want to keep it open if we're not going to be there, so that the neighbors can use it and use that, because they love the open
gazebo
space.
and all that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't want to open Pandora's box,
Okay.
but I'm just curious, if the Washington home won the lawsuit, then how is it, like, what did they win, and how is it that you all are
There were
proceeding?
a couple of residents of the home, my understanding is there were a couple of residents of the home who felt that they were not given the opportunity to create an association treating the home like you do the conversion of an apartment building to condos and selling it to the general public. And what the judge found was that a residential nursing home like the Washington home does not meet what is called the TOPA law, which is the Tenant Occupancy Protection Act, which allows tenants to galvanize and to create an association and to buy the property at the same price as an outside buyer. So because it was not treated like that, it was not a residence of that nature, it was a nursing home facility, they didn't meet the litmus test, is what I understand, for the criteria for the TOPA law. And that's why they prevailed, not because they went after each other, but because the residents had hoped that they might find a way to be able to stay.
But then, even though they won,
The home won, not the residents. So,
oh, I see.
Yeah, so there are now, I think, fewer than 20 residents at the home.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Any questions?
I want to tell you that on Friday night and Saturday night at 8, Lost in Yonkers is the student production at the school. These kids are extraordinarily talented, and a 2:30 matinee on Sunday, so please feel free to come and see the play if you have the opportunity. You have a question?
When will the home be free of all its residents?
I don't know the answer to that question. You'd have to ask Tim Cox, who's the executive director of the home. I know that they have been very seriously looking at a variety of different options and alternatives for the residents who are still there.
Well, if there are still residents on December, whatever the date is,
15th?
no, what happens?
In our contract with the home, it allows them to have an extension all the way till June if they need it. We had no interest in forcing out the elderly, so our goal is to really working together with the home to make sure that all the residents are safely and successfully placed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping me out. So if you go to the airport, you go inside.
Okay.
Chairman,
According to the sort of rules that we set for our consent agenda, when something comes off the consent agenda, it goes to the end of the regular agenda before other business for debate and discussion. But I understand that the Ellicott bus stop resolution is pretty short, and we have two pretty long things coming up. So I would propose that if we can do this quickly, dispatch with this quickly, we'll do that now. And then
thank you. I
Second.
was going to put that motion on the table. That was not my intent to put it at the end.
Do you have to vote on that motion?
technically that's an amendment to the agenda, so why don't we vote on that?
Yeah,
I'll second your motion, Maliki.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Passes. Okay, so why don't you tee this up quickly?
I'm coming. Okay. So, there is as part of the crossing, I forgot the name of the program, Crossing the Streets program?
Well, it's called the sort of Connecticut Avenue Crosswalk Safety.
Crosswalk Safety Program. DDOT has proposed, one little segment of that, DDOT has proposed moving the bus stop from the one that on the northbound bus stop that's right in front of this building, moving that half a block south to the intersection with Ellicott where that brand new Hawk signal is. Idea, basically it's pedestrian safety. Right now, the only way to cross the street is you're sort of crossing, there's no light there, you're crossing in the middle of the block. And so this is just moving that and then removing the markings that mark a crosswalk across Connecticut Avenue right here, just because it's not safe to cross here. So that's the proposal, and George Brannion is here from DDOT to talk about it in a couple more specifics, and we have a resolution before the commission to approve this move.
So just to give a little more background, there were several changes on the corridor in the 3F area that would involve putting in new signals or aligning bus stops to existing signals. That was basically the philosophy. And then uncontrolled marked crosswalks have a very bad safety record. There was some substantial research that was done by Federal Highway Administration a few years ago, which I'm using as the basis for trying to look at all the major corridors in the city and try to make sure that people are given an opportunity to cross at a signalized location on major arterials for whatever reason, but especially when there are bus stops up and down the corridor. So part of that plan was to put a hawk signal, which met the warrant and was installed at Ellicott, and then to realign the bus stop that's in front of at Everett, opposite the T intersection of Everett, in front of this building, to move that down to Ellicott Street, and it'd be on the south side of Ellicott because the trees on the north side are a bit large, and there were some issues with clearance with the bus mirrors and things. So it would be on the south side in front of the Ellicott House. So that would be where the bus stop would be moved to from right out in front of here. And we will construct a new bus pad in the roadway, a new landing pad, put the bus flag in that landing pad. And it does not meet the consideration level for a shelter at 92 boardings. The previous stop right out here at Everett. But that doesn't mean if it goes up that it can't be considered for a shelter at some point. And there would be space in the public space by the sidewalk in front of Ellicott House if that were to come to pass. So any other questions, I'm happy to
Okay, start with the commissioners.
I have none.
David, do you have anything? Commissioner Gresham?
Yes, considering the only 8-person deficit to the shelter, that's not very much. Is there anything?
It's not for absolutely having it at 100. They consider them. They begin to consider them. And so if we get 100, and if we check with WMATA's ridership data in the future, and we have 100, then we can submit it to the transit people at DDOT to see if they have the availability and also agree that it would be worth putting in.
Will it do any good for us to put in the resolution that we would like to request the shelter at this time?
It's up to you. I can forward that on to the
Okay.
and see what they
Just so we carry some weight. So I live a block from that intersection, and I notice sometimes there are quite a few people, especially going on the south side, that go across the street from the east side to the west side. I noticed there are quite a few that get off at Davenport. Most people seem to get off at Davenport, which there's a shelter on at Cumberland and none at Davenport. So that there's only going to be a block difference from the people getting off on the southeast corner of Davenport, and there's one block to go to the versus going all the way to Nebraska would be the next one is with a shelter.
Yeah, well, the plan is to move the southbound stop at Cumberland up to Davenport. That would be the next thing.
Right, that was what I was going to ask you about that, and get rid of the unsignaled crosswalk there, and also the unsignaled crosswalk at Appleton.
Yes.
Is that going to be?
When talking with Commissioner Modal, we decided to just keep this narrowly tailored to the Ellicott said this 2 years ago.
Right.
That I would come back with a whole package, and so that would be the next step, is to try to get everything lined up. It's just, unlike the general contractor,
Right.
This is a lot of moving parts at DDOT to get pulling in the same direction, but I've now been told by the transit group that to move anything related to the bus, I need ANC, approval or ANC recommendation. So
you'll be coming back
so
for
we'll
those
come back
two.
in maybe early in the next year with all the things all the other things that we want to do and get a vote on that, a resolution on that, so then I can go back and that will make many of these things move forward.
Okay, great. Because that was
And
of concern.
one thing to say where we stand on Chesapeake, because that was the other
Right.
somewhat contentious, or at least the crossing that had a lot of interest in signalizing.
Mhm.
There was a problem with the data transcribing. I thought we had met the warrants for a hawk signal at Chesapeake, but it turned out that we did not. There was a problem. The consultant mistranscribed a number from one table to another. And so there were only 15 pedestrians in a peak hour, which you need 20 to warrant a hawk signal. So what we really thought long and hard. I pushed very hard on the signals team that we've got to figure out a way to get to a hawk signal at Chesapeake, because if the spacing is right, the interest in the playground
Right.
is a major generator or a tractor. So what we're planning to do, it's in design, and it should happen next year, and I can give more early in the year, is that we're going to build a rapid flashing beacon. Those two LED flashers. I'm trying to think. MacArthur Boulevard and U Street is an example of a rapid flashing beacon, which is sort of a step down in terms of its aggressiveness towards motorists. It doesn't show a red light, but it does show some high intensity LEDs that flash only when activated by a pedestrian. That is our next step down if we can't warrant a hawk. But what we're planning to do is put it on standard signal mast arms and poles and arms. So in other words, the hardware, the pole construction will be ready
for a hawk
to convert to a hawk, provided that the rapid flashing beacon increases the accessibility and the safety of it enough to get more people to use it. If more people use it, we count them again. We hit the number.
Good plan. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's thanks
Yeah,
goes
that's
to our head of our signals team, Wasim Raja, who we kind of came up to this idea of, well, I said I'm not super comfortable about putting rapid flashing beacon on such a big road. That's one of the sort of trade-offs. It's not going to be as aggressive, but if it does increase pedestrian activity by just some, then we'll be able to get the warrant met, and then we can install a hawk with a lot less cost and time taken to do it, because we'll already have all that hardware.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you, George.
Yeah, I just want to address Commissioner Gresham's suggestion that we ask for the shelter now in the resolution. That's not what the folks here in this building and the folks at Ellicott House sort of signed on to, because we got their okay based on the plan that we had. Ellicott House, I don't know what they would think about installing a shelter there as opposed to a pole that's at a bus stop.
I think they would like that a lot better because people are protected and it signals a bus stop much clearer.
They were concerned, their concern had to do with sort of putting something sort of in the way there in front of their building.
Would the shelter, George, be in, if they put a shelter, would it be in the tree lawn area, or would it be pushed back like we have the situation on Albemarle Corner, which is not a good situation?
No, we will have to maintain pedestrian clear space of the 6-foot wide sidewalk. So we'll probably set behind the sidewalk, which is still public space. It's basically public space off the building face.
Okay, because that's not what's across the street. What's across the street is up against the curb line.
Yeah, I think it's better to bring it, to have it set back. So, but we can.
Okay, then I amend that, because that was one of the questions to ask. I'm glad you brought that up, because that does make a huge difference. When it's set back, it's not in the, I assumed it was going to be in the tree lawn, that it's about 5 feet there, 6 feet.
Yeah, 4 to 6 varies, but.
So if it's being put back, that causes trouble. We've found that that's difficult to do anything public space-wise.
Well, I'm sorry.
When the bus shelter is put behind the sidewalk,
Yeah.
not in front of the sidewalk, between the curb line and the sidewalk. That's where most bus shelters work the best. When they're put, as you're saying, behind the sidewalk? Or you,
Room between the sidewalk and the curb. It's pretty tight, and we have to have ADA compliance. You have to be able to get into that shelter with a wheelchair. You have to be able to get to the bus front door or landing area where the bus door opens in a wheelchair. So that's
No.
pretty tight. I mean, I don't think we should get into the weeds.
Right,
on exactly
okay.
where. I think if you want to say, even though we're below the
it should be
100,
considered.
you should consider it, and then and
Right.
that you want to have input on,
Right.
on the.
Because at Davenport, it's tight too, and it's up against the curb.
Yeah.
Do you want to offer an amendment to that effect, or no?
Sure. I mean, in the resolution? I mean, I gave you a couple of just friendly amendment revisions on number 2. The new bus stop
That's fine.
is not to
Yeah,
have a
those-
shelter. Okay. And then whatever you wanted to do on number 4, which says there is no offset of parking spaces to or at or of, I think I understand what you're trying to say there. They're
Okay.
moving. Is there,
No,
is
they're-
it, is
They
it,
will not be moving parking spaces, they're just going to take them away.
right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, with regard to paragraph 2, then, can you read that at some point? Is it basically a
The new
suggestion
bus
for
stop will
consideration?
not have a shelter.
The new bus stop is not to have a shelter, was the
Okay.
friendly.
Okay.
And
Thought you were going
to-
unless we say, we could say it's not to have a shelter at this time, with only 8 missing weekday boarding and lightings.
I mean, are you
We
seeking,
request a
a
shel-
conversation or consideration
Yes,
with them?
yeah.
If ridership rises after the new stop is installed, a bus shelter, you want to change that, we recommend that a bus shelter be installed or
Just
something?
change could
Or
to
be
should.
considered.
Should be
Okay,
considered.
now, again, I'm not clear about whether it should be installed or not.
Right, so it should be
I don't
considered.
know if I would like to have that in our resolution, that we say it should be there.
Should be
If the
considered.
folks at so it should be considered. Instead of could be considered, we should say should be considered?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what, just changing the word.
Change that one word?
doesn't say should be
Okay.
installed.
I'm good with that,
Okay. So then you accept that as a friendly amendment,
yes.
so we don't need to vote on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from? Yes, sir.
I ride that bus every day, and there are 2 things I would suggest to be aware of. First of all, the garage from the apartment house here, the access driveway is a very steep grade coming out of the building and out onto the street. I don't know how much clearance there's going to be between the back of the bus and the right side of that driveway coming out of that apartment house. So I think that should be.
He said it's blocking.
No, it won't.
Other than
Wait, excuse me. Wait, so there's plenty of room there. There's plenty of room there because the bus, the bus marking is going to be put on the corner.
I'm just saying, be sure to take a look at it. I'm not so sure about plenty of room,
Are you concerned that it would block the driveway?
but I'm just concerned there's a lot of
Interaction?
vehicles.
Okay.
There's a lot of foot traffic on Connecticut Avenue. I mean, everybody knows that, but I'm just saying to look at that
Pay
before you
attention.
do it, because I think it could become a concern. The second thing is with I think it should be at Ellicott. I think that's fair. But the second thing is when you get off the bus at Ellicott there, and then you come up, so the next time you get to a bus stop, a bus stop is Nebraska Avenue. The access across Ellicott Street there, believe it or not, is a very steep grade some sort of attention paid to that when those conditions arise. Because again, there are a lot of people that move through there, and that thing is deceptively steep. It's a short distance, but it's still quite steep.
Okay, thank you. George, do you want to comment on the space issue?
Yeah, we ran the design through Metro's bus operations. They agreed that the design fits.
There's enough space between
Yeah,
the pad
we
and
got so the stop bar, we want to make sure the bus stops at the stop bar, which is already pulled back because it's a hawk signal. We have a 20-foot setback at that type of signal. And that's where the 60-foot long bus pad will start and go back to the edge of the well, it's not quite 60, but it's close enough, and it comes right back to where the driveway is, and that's still probably 10 to 15 feet longer than a bus length. So WMATA would not. They approved this plan. So and they can be somewhat finicky about bus stop geometrics and dimensions. So they looked at that issue too. They didn't want it to block the tail of the bus, but block the driveway, and it won't. So. And on the are you talking about the ice on the sidewalk or in the roadway? Crossing.
Both.
Okay.
Well, it's a good point. It's something to be aware of, and that we should be aware of that. I mean, it would be the responsibility of Ellicott House to make sure that that sidewalk remains free of ice in the winter. Mm-hmm. But then once it is true, you're moving the stop from the crest of the hill down the hill.
And that's a pretty good pitch.
Mm-hmm. And just as a reminder, if those aren't cleared, to file a complaint with 311 because it is the property owner's responsibility to do it. So.
Or you can call Ian, and Ian will come.
Yeah, his predecessor used to get out there with it.
Just heads up, Ian.
Got your gloves for this evening? You suiting up with gloves yet?
Okay, let's move on.
Mufflers.
Any other comments from the? Okay, so why don't you read the operative clauses?
Yeah, so the operative clauses are, therefore be it resolved that ANC 3F approves of the segment of DDOT's crosswalk safety program for the move of the WMATA bus stop from the east side of Connecticut Avenue Northwest at Everett to the southeast corner of Ellicott Street Northwest. And 2, approves of the segment of DDOT's crosswalk safety program calling for the removal of the crosswalk markings at the Connecticut Avenue and Everett Street Northwest intersection. Be it further resolved that Commissioners Molad and Nugent are authorized to speak on behalf of the ANC 3F regarding this matter. Those are the operative clauses of the resolution. So can I move that the Commission adopt the resolution?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay, so now we are going to move to Kuwait next.
Okay, great. We have Holland and Knight here. Great. So, just to let me see that. Okay. So, for anybody who was not here last month, we had representatives from the Embassy of Kuwait, their law firm Holland and Knight, make an introductory presentation about the construction of a guard booth at the home on Fessenden and Linnean Streets. And we took it under advisement and made some recommendations to you all, and so hopefully you all can respond to those recommendations, and we'll hear from you.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jessica Bloomfield. I work with Chris Collins closely at Holland Knight. He sent me his not better things to do this evening, but figured he'd already been here once, and we've given our full presentation. For the rest of the public, we're proposing to put a small guard booth in the front yard of the ambassador's residence on Tilden Street, which requires a special exception.
Fessenden.
I'm sorry, Fessenden Street requires a special exception from the Board of Zoning Adjustment. So the that's why we're here. Our hearing is January 25th, so we've got some time, but we've read your resolution earlier this evening. It was on the table back there, and we'd be pleased if you were to support it. We went back and forth by email a couple of times in response to some questions about the location of the guard booth, the design of the guard booth, the tree, which is a big, beautiful tree that was important to the commission and it's important to the ambassador as well. So we can go over those questions if you'd like. We can give a presentation. We have boards if you want to see it again, or we can just let you lead and ask us whatever questions you all still have in the public.
Does anybody want to see?
No, I don't think we should go through the whole presentation again. Let's just focus on the remaining questions that we have.
And for our team is here. This is Jackie Bachman. She's from Securitas, who will do the security, and our architect Michael Jones is here as well.
Great. Thank you all so much. Do you want to start?
Yeah.
At the end? Okay, David.
I have no questions.
Okay. Well, could you address the questions we asked? Thank you for coming back. We really appreciate it. And for addressing some of our questions from last time. Could you talk a little bit further on the location and the design?
Sure. I'll start, and then I might pass it over to both of you, actually. The location is based on a number of different things. The first is the building restriction line, which I think you all talked about last time we were here. I wasn't here.
Yes.
We actually went back and touched base with some people at the Public Space Committee who said, no, we will not approve a structure within the building restriction line if there's an alternate location where it can be, and there is, because that's where we proposed it to be located. So it's not an option to turn it 90 degrees for that reason, which was the proposal that you all had said last time. The design, I would turn it over to Michael, it's not intended to be a architectural statement. It's
intended to be low-key.
You're right.
It really
It's
is
not.
consciously intended to be low-key. In terms of the amount of glazing, which is part of the consideration, the amount of glass around the perimeter of the building, that's something that Jack can address better than I can. But the reason that we don't have any columns or any expression of that sort is very simply because they need to be able to see it. And that's one of the driving forces.
Right.
Geometry and the fact that we're trying to really minimize the footprint of that building and sort of sneak it into that corner, if you will, which results in that curvilinear end of the building, really dictates a lot in my mind about the geometry of the building. It prevents us from doing any sort of an arch or any other sort of, vaulted roof form, for example. Because I look at the garage door over there, I don't know if you notice the wall there. I can pick up on that.
Yeah.
If it were a different geometry, but it's not, and I've seen buildings try and do that with a rounded corner. It doesn't work, in my estimation. So we've tried to purposely keep it low-key. It has painted trim. It doesn't have stone. It does have brick that matches the brick on the building. And we're just trying to keep it pretty neutral and really play it down so that it doesn't make a major statement, but in fact becomes more of a background piece. And really try and screen it behind the landscaping so it's not a prominent element at all in the landscape.
No, totally appreciate. It's a difficult problem putting in guardhouses anywhere. So I do understand that. I think the commission understands that. I think we are concerned, or at least I'm concerned. I noticed today, as a matter of fact, that you have string lines staked out, and I think you are extremely close to that tree. I understand that you're doing the floating platform that you described the last time, and you're going to have an arborist there. Thank you, because that is a fairly large tree. If you look at your pictures or any of the other pictures, it's that tree right there, which is extremely large and high. So, of course, everybody wants to save a tree that are tree huggers. It's a wonderful house design. They did an incredible job 20-some years ago in building the house. You all have done wonderful in buying the house, so we appreciate that, the embassy. I just would like to ask, did you ever look at moving I'm sure you did, but I just want to ask the question. I've looked at it the daylight and the nighttime, and it's great that it's not going to have lights and you don't have the buzzer, and you've explained a lot about that it's basically just a bow to have a perch for two occupants. One is the driver, and one is the security guard, which actually right now sits in a car at the garage and can see everybody and engage with me today. It was great. So when you looked at this, did you look at putting the guardhouse to not have to, three things, to put it behind, one, if you put it somewhere other than in the front, to the side lot, which would mean in the gravel space, because you obviously don't want to put something in front of the garage, but where the parking spaces are now, that there are no, number one, you wouldn't have to go for a special exception because it's on a side lot versus on the front. Number two, it locates the guardhouse not anywhere close to vegetation and to trees. It gets totally away from any kind of plant disturbance. And three, it offers visibility, the same type of visibility to the street and to the gate. Because the guard could, if he sits back at the where he's sitting right now at the garage location, he still would have that same, he or she would still have that same visibility. So I understand about the design. It's kind of a shame it doesn't go with the building. I mean, other guardhouses in our area do, such as the Italian Embassy has a fairly nice little guardhouse, among some others. So again, it's not, they were done a long time ago, so that may make a difference in zoning, et cetera. But those three things are a consideration. Can you kind of talk, can you respond to my inquiry?
Well, I'll mention a couple of things. One is that Jackie's going to have to get into distance, because I know we've had the conversation about the distance. I had made some other proposals that just simply didn't work from their viewpoint. One of the concerns is the ability to be able to back out and turn a vehicle around from that garage. You pull in, and part of the reason for that sort of T-shape is to be able to back out, turn around, and come back out. Because I wouldn't want to have to negotiate that backing up the whole distance. So that's part of that. And admittedly, it's a parking
But
space
it's
as well.
fairly large. I mean, you can put 2 or 3 cars there. Okay.
Generally speaking, if you're going to not run any threat with a tree, you have to stay outside the drip line. That's a big tree.
Yep.
And the drip line is the edge of that canopy above.
Pretty far out there.
Which means we're going to be out some distance, and we're actually, that would push us to the other side, frankly, of that T-shape, if we were going to respect that. Okay, so it gets it out, and in my mind, it makes it more visible. I think it probably works to the detriment for,
It's it's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you did look at that, is what you're telling me. You all did try to push it back.
Yes,
Okay.
from a security point of view, it definitely became a problem. From a visibility point of view, it's much more visible from the street. You can see where the security guards are, what they're doing, and that was not the intention of the parties. So it did create a security issue. We did look at it in the beginning.
Okay. I appreciate you responding.
Anything else?
No?
No. Okay, so I don't think there are any surprises in the resolution. We had talked about just the previous month we had the Israeli embassy renovation, and so all of this, all these conditions are very fresh on our mind. I think the only thing that we may have just touched on and not gone into a lot of detail on is our preference for sidewalk installation, and we realize that there may not be a sidewalk today or tomorrow, but in some future scenario, we just want your commitment that you're not going to object to a sidewalk Yes, it's been a kind of a major tenet of this ANC.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
For number one of the conditions, that the applicant will submit a traffic control plan and a construction staging plan, I'm not sure the extent of a traffic control plan that we will have. If we don't have one, I assume we don't have to submit one. If the city doesn't require one, I just want to not be tied into doing one just to satisfy the ANC.
Right. I mean, you all have so much parking space there. I don't think there would be an issue where you would have to block traffic.
Right.
And if the city doesn't require you to do one, then we're not going to require you to do one.
Okay.
This is just kind of boilerplate.
That's what I figured, but okay, great.
Yeah.
Just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
So the operative clauses.
So do we want to take it out of the resolution?
Let's see, if applicant will submit a traffic control plan and construction staging plan if required.
If required by the district.
If required by the district,
law.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, not DC law, but it's not a law.
Regulation.
Regulation.
For review and comment as soon as they're available. 2, when known, applicant will notify neighbors on Fessenden Street and Linnean Avenue of dates of construction, approximately length of construction period, and a name and contact number of a construction representative on site. That's something that we have found is very helpful with neighbors. If you have your construction manager and contact information, it just really helps soothe potential disruption. Let's see, number 3, applicant agrees to comply with all DC laws governing the care and protection of existing trees. 4, applicant affirms that the guard booth will sit on a platform and the piles to support the platform will be hand dug into the ground and carefully positioned to avoid hitting any significant tree roots. Applicant further affirms that the work will be done under the supervision of a certified arborist. 5, applicant affirms that it will install additional plantings to screen and soften the guard booth appearance and visibility, attempting to shield it from view from Fessenden and Linnean. 6, no temporary or permanent structures are to be placed or built over the front property line or the front building restriction line. 7, applicant agrees to comply with all DC zoning and building regulations that apply to the treatment of public space. And 8, applicant agrees that its stormwater management plan and its landscaping will not preclude future installation of a sidewalk. And I listed Sally, Maliki, and me as contacts as a practical matter. We will not be on the ANC in January, so it's you or whoever you designate.
Yep. I was just wishing Naomi was here. We'll see if she wanted, but I guess that's it.
I mean, I don't want to write her in.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
Right. Well, you really can't write her in because she's not in office.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I have a question for you guys, which I forgot to ask. On the tree situation, since you are so close to that large tree, and you say you will have an arborist there, if the tree is compromised, if it's damaged, I assume you're doing the root pruning and all that we talked about before. If it is damaged and it accelerates its demise, what have you all discussed? What the recourse would be in replacing that tree?
Have not, but I'm sure that the embassy would be willing to replace it. They aren't going to be able to replace it with exact.
Obviously a big tree, but I mean,
that's actually covered under those new tree regulations.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
that's
wouldn't be able to compromise the tree.
right, because you have to get a permit to take it down, and it's so big, you would have to. I just want to be sure that's going to be, because it does have that potential of its demise.
There's always that potential, and that's why we're going to the lengths that we are, and literally exposing roots and locating everything prior to digging. So that
Should we add anything?
So number 3 says, agrees to comply with all DC laws governing the care and protection of existing trees. So we could say care, protection, and potential replacement.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
And I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We'll make a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Great. Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much. And we're delighted to welcome the Kuwaiti ambassador.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the presentation from Merch.
I assume
Thank
that'll be at your next fundraiser, Mary Beth.
Yeah.
Yep. As long as it's architect and whatever.
Wait till you
Hey, how are you?
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a drinking fountain anywhere nearby now?
If you get a cup, I'll give you some more water.
Thank you.
If you're not, okay.
Anyone need coffee to stay awake?
Bathroom break.
I don't know. We could all go sit out there if you want.
So, what we have under consideration here is a public space application related to the Merch Modernization Project. So, I'll let you introduce yourselves, and then what we're going to do tonight is walk through your presentation, present what exactly is being done in the public space. We'll offer some broad comments, and then I think what we're going to need to do is sit down with you separately and go through the plans in greater detail.
That sounds great. So,
And we're going to try to keep this to about half an hour. Just
we'll try to go as quick as you want, but we'll take as many questions as you guys want as well. So I'm Patrick Davis, Director of Facility Planning and Design for DCPS.
Excuse me, can I ask you to spell your name?
Sure. P-A-T-R-I-C-K D-A-V-I-S.
And you're
Director of Facility Planning and Design for DCPS. Excuse me. Yep. So we are very excited to be here. It's been a long road to get here. Sally's been part of many of those conversations, Commissioner Nugent as well. We are very excited where the designs are. We are moving full steam ahead to have the building ready for the students' return in August of 2018, which sounds like a long ways away, but it's a lot of work to get there, and this is one of the steps we need to take to get there. So we're going to present the public space items tonight. Our goal is to get to the December Public Space Committee meeting to make sure we stay on track. We know the Commission didn't get full notice from DDOT until recently. We submitted in October, but apparently there was a lag in communication. So we are going to do whatever it takes to get you the information you need, including special meetings if needed, and we're happy to do that. So Ronnie McGee, who's the principal architect on board, is going to do much of the talking tonight, but Sarah Perlstein is the project manager from DGS. So both Sarah and I will be here to answer as many questions as we can. We have a lot of information on the deck, but again, we'll take as many questions as you want, but again, we're happy to set a special meeting if you guys like in the next week or so to dig through the details. So I can hand over to Ronnie to walk through the details of what we have here.
So if you plan to spend maybe 10 or 15 minutes with this, and so we have some time for questions.
Sure. I have with me from Dissolve who put this package together. It's here with us at this laid out. You can scroll through the slides.
Yeah, we can take that one. Is that okay?
Well, these are civil site improvements to the area around the Merch School site. We've obviously spending a lot of time putting the buildings and the addition and the adaptation of the existing school together. But of course, along with that comes our public safety. It comes with a lot of improvements around the site that have been requested, and a lot of them we sought to do ourselves. So if you see, I'll speed this up a little bit. So if you look next slide, there's the selected roadway and utility improvements within the public way. You can see it in the package. I won't read through all of these, but these are a list of items around the site that are going to be upgraded throughout the project. Most of these will be done at the tail end of the project because a lot of the work will be involved, construction involves the entire site, so we won't try to improve these elements until at the end. So there's a lot of repairs to the streets, the curb, trees, protection of trees doing the work. A lot of this work is going to involve the entire site. You see it there. I'll do a little bit of my laser here. You see that this is the addition here. That's the existing merged school here. There's going to be an addition right on the corner of Davenport right here in 36. There's Ellicott there. There's a church and structure there. So we're putting in a fields. There's a lot of work being done all over the site. But the main work will be started right here where the existing building is first, and then the addition after that. So going to the next page here. So these activities, what I have and what you have in the PowerPoint that we sent you, actually there's more detailed information, but I'm not going to get into that. It's like the stormwater management issues, but all the information is available if you like to get into that. What actual stormwater management techniques we're taking on the site. They're all in the package we sent you. So the design narrative of what we sent to public space is available for you to see it. So the next major item is the landscape plan, landscape activities in public space. And I will read these because these are probably more of your interest. So the new street trees go on Ellicott and 36 Davenport and Reno. So we're actually adding new trees in all these public ways. Part of our analysis involved the arborists coming in and the public space. We have to add structural soil to some of these areas because they can't support the tree life. So we have to come in and dig up the public area, put new soil in, and then plant the trees. So this is pretty elaborate work going on in the tree box area. So along with that, we repair a number of sidewalks around the site. We're actually repairing the retaining walls, those wood retaining walls that the Park Service installed many years ago around the rise. Stairs on the site are being repaired. Installing bike racks different parts around the site for access to the site. We're adding some wood and observation decks off of the school that kids can use to observe some of the rainwater gardens that we're putting in around the school to help our stormwater management system.
And we have some renderings of those.
Yes, they'll come later. A small amount of sidewalk in front of school will be repaired to access our main driveway up to school because the new entrance to the school will be on Davenport. All right, so in the, this is the map. These maps are pretty light for you to see. They actually just illustrate elements that are easier to see in the written form than here. But this map is actually the tree space removal plan. So we have a number of trees removed up in the corner of here. All of them are below the caliber, and none of them are the heritage trees. There are a couple of heritage trees that are being protected, and protection plans are included in this packet, much more elaborate ones in the actual public space submitted. So we'll go into that in more detail on each area of the site in a moment. Next slide. So this is the tree planting plan. So this is a canopy that was suggested not only by public space but by CFA. It's been approved by Commission of Fine Arts. So this involves installing trees of certain canopy types and species to complete the canopy around the site. So that was all reviewed by CFA and the arborists and the public space folks. So we're actually putting in a lot more green material. Some of it is more mature, larger trees, other large some bushes, and a lot of other green space elements putting in because we really have to create the pervious surface requirements now are very tough for sites nowadays. So we're installing a lot of pervious surface around the site that's actually impervious now. So actually ended with more infiltration on the site now than before we put the work in because all this is asphalt now, which is impervious. We actually have a more pervious site now. So. All right, we can get into detail on that. Each part of the site is discussed in detail. So there's again, in my packet, I have a site landscape activity narrative, which is available to the board and commission and the public to see that on anyone you want to hear about the actual details of the site, which is with the public space. So there's a landscape narrative that talks about individual trees and the concepts behind the planting. But to get into detail that you might want to see in public space. This is a public space issue we're talking about. So these are separate individual trees being installed to take the place of trees that are either missing, damaged, or trees that have been replaced due to direction by UFA. That's the Urban Foresters Association. So next slide. So again, this is on 36th Street in Ellicott. These are more trees being installed. All the dark green is actually trees being installed. These little black dots are the caliper of the tree that's staying in place. So that's how you can read that. And all that's in here, this is a butterfly garden that's being installed up on the corner. It's a significant part of our new installation with the Merch School. And at the bottom, you see some of the suggested plants that will be, not suggested, actually, those are plants we're actually going to put in. But those are plants that were suggested to CFA and Urban Forestry, and were accepted as part of the design. Next slide. So again, this is 36th Street directly. There's 2 more trees put in, and again, what happens is on our side of the sidewalk, there are rain gardens and other planting areas which help our pervious surface activity, help our stormwater management. So these are some of the plants that are suggested are part of that stormwater management system. So, again, you can see each individual plant system we want to install. Next slide is at Davenport. This is the new cafeteria installation that will be partially underground. So when you're standing on the sidewalk, you actually still see the original historic building. More trees being installed in tree boxes here. Again, more plant. Again, here's part of our most elaborate stormwater management system is between the face of that front of this building and the whole front along Davenport. So that area actually is a teaching area also for the kids, but it's actually also part where the drainage is best for us to get rid of the stormwater on site and control it. So you'll see that in more detail in a moment. Again, part of the design of the building, this is two parts of the kindergarten area. There's an area here that's open space for the kids to play. Again, more trees being installed. This has direct interface with the stormwater management system and the sort of garden area out in front of the building. And you'll see that in a minute how we interface with the kids. They can actually stand and look at the rainwater gardens that are going to be right here, stormwater gardens over here.
And just for reference, the planned South Street here is Davenport Street,
yes,
which will be basically the corner on the far left of the screen is Reno and Davenport. The main entrance to the school will be planned planned east here, down Davenport Street, closer to.
So this comes from looking at this for 2 years. I guess I assume everyone knows the street.
We do, who live here, but
this is Reno.
It's not labeled.
This is true.
But my daughter went to Merch also, so I've been back and forth here for many years. So this is the next slide actually illustrates sort of the bioretention area that we're talking about. So this is actually a detail of how bioretention works. So there's soil media being installed. Actually, we're not getting my face there. This is the actual sort of main garden here. There's actually a wood trellis area here that you can actually, wood decorators, you can actually stand on. The kids can actually look at how this works. Now this will be filled with plants, so there won't be really active water. And the idea is that the water drains from the other parts of the site to this planted area. So it's not an active water area. So people are concerned about mosquitoes. The idea is not to have any water at the surface. That's the idea of this design. So you'll just see a heavily planted area in front of the school between the sidewalk and the building. So that's how that works. So another area that I'm sure is of great concern is the curbside management. So we have a lot of back and forth with the state team and the school and the neighbors about how this would work. So this is the existing plan. I'm going to pull out my cheat sheet here. This is what's going on existing right now. So if you look at, you can see the colors here. The yellow here is a school day is a limited parking that's around the site. The red is where Reno is, so there's no parking on this side right here, where we see red. The green is the existing residential parking in the area. So if you see the next slide, the proposed areas is Reno stays the same. We are proposing some parking for teachers here. There's temporary parking during school hours. It'll be permitted. We're still working out the details of that. On this side on 36th Street across from the apartment buildings. The other parking here will remain the limited parking. There's the Davenport is your layover time, 15 minutes to drop kids off, and your typical transit for parents to drop students off and pick students up during the day. So that won't change significantly right here. The main change here is right here. There's also an area here that we're proposing for a truck to stop and the place off street for a truck to stop to bring things to the school on 36th Street. So we want Davenport to stay clear, Reno, and Ellicott to stay clear most of the time. So there's a number of different color-coded signs there that you can see. So restricted parking.
Just chime in here quickly. So we've walked this site with DDOT multiple times, including their Safe Routes to School coordinator. And the plan would be to have drop-off on Davenport and on Ellicott Street. Currently on 36th Street, there is limited no parking, which quite frankly isn't enforced. So there's often parking there all day. And the other issue we've noticed on both Davenport and Ellicott is lack of enforcement. So drop-off has been difficult. It's been sort of a hectic pinch point in the morning when families come to drop off because cars are parked along there. But we've got an agreement with DDOT and DPW to properly enforce the zones that are both on Ellicott and Davenport to ensure that we're going to have safe drop-off zones on both Ellicott and Davenport, which then potentially frees up a spot along 36th Street. The sort of elephant in the room here is we have 86 staff members that need to be going to this school. So what's probably not shown in these plans is we are proposing, trying to talk about the Kirkland a little bit, is to have underground parking for roughly 25 staff members under the building, which is costly. It's A, what zoning requires, but B, is what we can afford to build in the project. So we've had preliminary discussions and agreement with DDOT to work with you all on 36th Street staff parking. It's a larger discussion that we can continue, but I just wanted to pinpoint that. Have a further discussion about it.
So where would they access the underground?
Sure, so they'll talk about the curb.
Oh, okay.
So we got 60 spaces to make up on the street.
No,
for the 85 staff members, if we got 25. So I'm just
the
kind
reality is we never provide one-to-one. We just can't provide one-to-one parking for our staff. It's in a city. It's just quite frankly impossible. We try to provide as much as we can. The reality is a lot of staff members do live within the ward, so some folks do park within the neighborhood because they have a zoned pass. So by getting the spots underground and then along 36, we would meet what we typically are able to provide in a school in urban settings. So we would never be able to provide all 80 spots.
Well, you've got Wilson and Deal right there also with teachers within 2 blocks. So I don't know. I just asked this question since you're on the parking issue.
Sure.
There was some talk about doing parking on Davenport in the next block against the National Park Service land, where that could be teacher
Sure.
parking.
It's a potential discussion we've had with DDOT and something we continue to have. At this point, they've agreed on 36th Street, so we can work with you all. But it's a further discussion we can have with them.
Okay, great.
So as Patrick's saying, the 25 spaces does meet the zoning requirement.
Right.
It's a matter of right on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look through the colors, the purple is the church parking. So we're actually putting back the parking necessary for the adjacent activities around the site. The Reno access is here to get into the site. You'll see it better on some of the slides for 25 underground spaces. This is the 36th Street parking around here. So there's a number of, most of these signs are signs that are typical DDOT signs that just be moving around the site. So you have the restricted parking, you have church parking, restricted day parking, you have no parking area. So all those signs will be, a lot of signs you see now will remain intact. Yellow is the school day limited parking, and that's a 15-minute parking, but that's just for dropping kids off. And the idea is that the parents want to be able to drop kids off on all sides, but we've kind of confined it to Ellicott and Davenport at this point. Next slide. So the next slide is next slide is the traffic control plan. So this mainly addresses activities on the site during construction. So traffic control in this case means dragmen, it means access by trucks, it means stopping traffic to the construction traffic at certain times to allow neighborhood traffic to move around. So all that's part of the DDOT application. Right now that's in front of DDOT for review. But as part of our plan right now, maybe a little hard to see, is that the existing building is here. The first work will go on, there's demolition going on in the building, and so the access will be from Davenport in this area right here. So actually right now, if you go out to the site right now, all the other entries to the site are cordoned off, and just the Davenport site is open, because that's how they're accessing the existing building. That's phase one. So that will go on until the demolition work is completed. When they start earnestly on the existing building, again, which is this building here, and the cafeteria building here, and an infill, they'll open up Ellicott Street for access, and Davenport will be accessed for limited amounts. But so they're accessing both sides of the site for that limited period of time. They're working on that part, and that's phase two. So again, that allows us to bring materials in without regularly disrupting one side of the street for the whole time. So again, this is a plan that will be worked out in more detail as the contractors decide how materials are coming on site. And again, a lot of commitment to notification in neighborhoods have been involved with the contractors. So this is a work in progress to make sure that it's least deleterious to the neighborhood activity, so neighborhood traffic. So,
I would just say, just on the Ellicott potential construction entrance, which again, I'm moving something we're working towards. We have been in contact with the church across the street, which would be the most impacted by that. We're obviously confined by the existing building on 36th Street. And once we start the excavation work of the addition, which is mostly along Davenport, obviously getting to the site through there, there's going to be a massive hole there. So we're pretty confined by that. And then, a temporary curb cut off Reno for construction entrance. We anticipate the DDOT wouldn't approve that. So it basically leaves Ellicott Street for us to have construction access to the site for the next year and a half. But again, we've had the preliminary conversations with the most impacted neighborhood with the church there, and then there's a daycare that serves as well.
So the last phase, phase three, is what Mike was talking about. Is that then it goes to basically Ellicott Street, because this building will be in construction. There will be a massive series of holes along here, so all traffic will have to be directed there. So where the trucks come from, where they leave, all will be part of that traffic management plan to make sure the impact neighborhood is least as possible. So that's part of the management activity. So we'll see more detail on that as we work through DDOT. So the next area that affects public space.
Well, I just have a quick question. You just maybe answered it. You have not gotten approval from, have you gotten approval from DDOT on this traffic control plan?
No.
Because I don't see any approved anywhere on it. So.
This is phase two and phase three have not been approved. Phase one, I believe, is that approved?
Well, we're just using the existing
entrance right now.
Phase one. So no, it has not. This phase has not gotten full DDOT.
Okay, we'll come back. That was,
phase one,
if you can tell me the timeline for that approval. I know it's 6 months. You have to renew, if the audience doesn't know this, the traffic control plans only are good for 6 months. And then they come up for review after that first 6 months, second 6 months, third 6 months. So if you all can provide a timeline of when these phases will occur, that will be very helpful for the ANC and for the neighborhood.
Okay, we can do that. Obviously, as you go 6 months over, the building's moving along. So
Right. Right. I mean, you have to do different traffic control plans.
And I would think that would be important to the neighborhood, because as materials move through the site, you want to know.
Right. Well, we've already been through a couple with Park Van Ness and UDC, but Park Van Ness closed the sidewalk and there was a lot of truck activity. So the community is aware of this, but this is going to be a whole city block, not just the confined frontage.
Okay, so the next slide is the tree saver plan. So this was a big issue for us. Again, read some of this issue. The arborist, we hired Mitchell Pitchford trees, which actually recommended to us from Pitchford Trees.
It's for
And
trees, okay.
he came out, looked at the trees. One of the big issues was the access point on Reno was that two trees that were nearby. So we were concerned about that, neighbors were concerned about that. He looked at the trees and he felt that they would not be impacted by moving the access point slightly south. We did that and left the trees, so the actual driveway is between the two major trees on the site. These are large trees. These are willow oak trees. So during construction, measures will be put in place to protect all the trees around the site, but particularly these two. So he looked at these with more detail, the two that are on the site on the Reno side. So, and he's indicated trees will survive this because he thinks the acceptable level of root loss, which a small amount of root will be cut as they cut through the driveway, kind of like that. But the UFA had some concerns, and he went back and wrote a more detailed report, citing the fact that his plan was to have this tree growth regulator installed, applied to the tree, which holds the tree back in some growth, but adds more starch to the tree, and so that as more robust growth occurs later on in the tree's life. So you actually hold back on some root growth during a certain point. Now this was something new to me, so I asked him, did he have something for teenagers, but he said that was not the case.
I was going to say, we've never heard of this.
Since under the Kuwait ambassador.
Since they were just here.
This is an acceptable plan to UFA, so this is what we're thinking, if the tree looks like it's something. So that's our arborist will look at. So this is, and maybe you can chime in Steve, on this. This is actually the drawing he did to show exactly where the tree is and where our driveway should be as we went on the site to do this. So this is part of our study of the site. So he's indicated here that in public space, this is where the tree line we shouldn't cut, so in terms like that. So that's part of our plan on how to install that driveway around that tree. So as you go on further, there is a dogwood, falling dogwood that has to be removed as part of this work. And as part of the plan, how the trees are protected, the roots, the limbs are protected, all as part of this plan. So a very elaborate system of tree protection techniques are available to the contractor. Some of them right next to where the car access is, and this is an artist transition. You can see the trees, all nice mature trees everywhere in the site, but this is where they'll be within a few years.
What street is this?
This is
Reno.
That's the new driveway.
That's the new driveway, yes.
I just wanted Commissioner Guthrie asked where the curb cut or the driveway would be. We sort of brushed past it quickly, but to get to the below grade parking, it would be off Reno. So if we can go back quickly to the plan, I understand time's limited here, so I just want to make sure we're addressing your comments. There are a number of restrictions on the site. Most of you are probably aware. This isn't good enough, yeah. So as I mentioned, on 36th Street, we're confined by the existing historic building. We can't really go underneath that. There's a diagonal line, which you really can't see here, which basically, Barney can draw it here. On the plan, north side of that line is National Park Service land, so we can't have a curb cut there. And then Davenport is where the addition is going, plus the main entrance. So we're really left with Reno to have any access for parking onto the site. So I just wanted to give you that brief background on why it essentially had to be there. It really weren't.
And is there going to be a signal, or?
Well, there's the existing signal on the corner of Davenport and Reno. And the current plan for Romney is right turn only into the into the so yeah, the current plan.
It's right turn, and I think it's right turn out only to the things. Cars can make a right turn so that way you won't impact traffic trying to get across.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide the overall context for why it had to be.
On that,
Sorry. Pretty pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go back to pictures.
And next slide is the elevation of the front entrance, and again, this is the area where that sort of the rain garden, part of the rain garden. There's a lot more rain gardens from the inside of it, behind the buildings too. And this is that cafeteria element here, this raised slightly above grade. But also has some green elements on top of it, and there are also green roof elements on tops of different parts of the roof of the new installation that we're creating. So again, very pervious rain absorbing site that we created after we finished the project. Next slide. That's the area that I showed you where the kindergartens come out sort of is right here. This is also that inset piece where you can actually come out and through a gated area and cross over that that green area, which should be our main document. So this is the basic the merch site, and as I said, with much more technical data inside the packet and inside the PDF, so if you need more information, you can grab that. And obviously, and it's available to the public on the state site.
Yeah, I would just add this, obviously a large project that's going to be, be here and serve the kids for quite a long time. So this is an important project to all, so we want to answer as many questions as we can. If there's additional questions that come up after tonight, we're willing to sit down and meet with you all to address as many questions as we possibly can. As I mentioned, we would love to keep our date on the December 46th committee to make sure we're getting our building permit and stay on track to open in August 2018. But we'll hear the questions you have. We go through that very quickly. So
can we have the lights back on?
Great.
Or we can do it in the dark. A little dramatic thing here.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming out and presenting to us, especially those elements that we're going to have to consider in the public space. There's a lot of information here, as we were discussing on the phone. There are, many, many, many drawings, very, very detailed. You've spent 2 years working on these. We need 30 days to look at them. So what I'd like to propose is, I know you've spent some time going through a lot of these documents, and you have some sort of big picture concerns. David, I know you had 1 or 2 questions as well that you had wanted to ask. So maybe we could just do that now, and then we can arrange a time when we can sit down with the architectural team and go through the plans. And so I'll start. My main concerns with the traffic control plan, with the parking and sort of the impact on the envelope neighbors, the ones right around. You talked about St. Paul's Church, but they're not the only ones on that block. There are 6 or 7 houses there as well. So we need to make sure that they're comfortable with what's going to be happening for a year and a half in their front yard. And then you talked about the first phase of the traffic control plan, and the second phase and the third phase. We're going to have to be very diligent about going through the details on. So those are my main concerns. Sally, why don't you just run through quickly what your big ones are?
Well, I just want to say you all have done a tremendous amount of work. It's a difficult project. Everybody appreciates that. It's been a lot of great things and a lot of angst over many, many things. So without much ado, I think you all know that. But we do appreciate it. The community does appreciate all the work and dedication to our school. In saying that, I just want to say the commission does need 30 days. You all have had 2 years and full-time working on this. Paid day job, the commission does not. We are not paid, it's volunteer. We have to do this at night and the weekends. So this is, just so you know, this is a lot to digest, even though I've been very involved with it on the SIT team, and I know a lot. It still takes to go through 37 detailed drawings and look at all the public space and things that come from the building and the site onto public space. It's not just the public space. It's also doing a total city block. It's not it's a big project. It's massive, which I think everybody's aware of now when you see all the parts and pieces that have to go into this. But we need to have the time to ask certain questions for the community. Not just the SIT team, this is from the community. I would like to say that we already have a list of 17 questions, which obviously I can't go over tonight. That's just not fair to the audience or the other commissioners. We need to do due diligence on some of these things. I think what the 3 major points that I want to bring up I have gotten from the SIT team, which you all are mainly aware of, and from the community, which you're probably not aware of. The first one is the traffic control plan, which impacts the community. and your contractor and the design and the whole deal for 2 years. So that is something we need to go over. There's some logistics in that, the 3 phases, the timeline, the truck mitigation, because right now, Reno Road, or none of the roads around Merch are earmarked for large trucks. So that's my concern and quite a few other people's concern, because the roads are already in bad shape on Davenport as they stand right now. Where the truck's going to come from, the traffic control plan does not address that. So we would like to, I would like to see, I think our commission would like to see a truck mitigation plan, which is provided by the contractor for where all the dump trucks are coming from, where all the concrete, you're going to have a lot of concrete trucks, et cetera, on site, a lot of demo going on. You don't see it much now, but you're going to have a lot in the near future. So we would like to see that, and if you're going to get a waiver from DDOT and bringing those trucks in, how you're bringing them in. We got a lot of pushback from the people on Van Ness when they were working on Hearst and the trail and then the swing space, and we also got it with Park Van Ness and UDC. So we're not singling you out by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that needs to be done. Okay, that's the first one. I do want to understand the closure of the sidewalks. We have been told by Matt Marcoux numerous times from Public Space that closing sidewalks are a no-no at all cost. So we would like to know more about the closing of the sidewalks, the time frame of the sidewalk closing. We know that there are sidewalks across the street that can be channeled to. We're very aware of that. We've been through a project for 3 years where a sidewalk was closed, and we got a lot of public outcry on it. We had to have actually meetings about the sidewalk closure. So I just want to prepare you all that that may come up, and we need to work on that.
Just to clarify, you're talking about during construction, right? The closure of sidewalks during.
Well, I mean, sometimes they close the sidewalk not just from 7 to 7, but for a extended period. Right, yes. And to have flaggers and et cetera, signs, which you have done on this, but it needs to be fleshed out more for the community. The second thing is the surrounding fence that has been brought up by the SIT team and the grounds committee. That is I'd like you to kind of talk a little bit more about that. DCPS's policy. We got kind of odd comments in the grounds committee about an open campus or a secure campus. I think in the case of Merch, since this is a community gathering place as well as a school grounds, there needs to be security on this site. You're putting 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. I'll say that nicely. You're doing an excellent job of that. And that's been the contentious part of this whole project, is how much is having to go on this site as far as building, playground, saving trees, tearing down trees, et cetera. The list goes on and on. The fence, there on the plan right now, there is a single fence that we see that goes, it looks like it's trying to keep people from going down the incline to the parking, to the driveway on Reno Road. It makes no sense to me and our expert, because it's just a fence and there's no closure to it. It's just a fence coming out. So that's a detail. We can address that later off-site, offline or whatever. But that fence needs to be actually extended all the way around Reno Road, down 36, Ellicott, and on 36, as it is currently, for the security of the kids and the teachers when there's recess time. The teachers cannot monitor the children. They never have been able to at that far corner at Ellicott and Reno Road. Again, we'll talk about that area offline. But that is a very big concern, security-wise, from the teachers, from the community, and also from the new soccer field, which will have, it's a little bit lower than Reno, but not much. And right now, the soccer field is very low, and the balls don't come out, so the concern is whether we need taller fence or netting, et cetera. The third thing is the soccer field. There have been years upon years of debate on the soccer field during our tenure, my husband's and our tenure 20 years ago, in totally redoing the Merch playground and planting all those wonderful trees that are now being taken down, much to our chagrin. But we understand why. We're for development. We just want to be sure that other trees are put on the site to augment the trees that are being removed, that people ordered and took care of for many years. What I want to say about the soccer field is that we have been through many years of turf, regular grass turf, and it's nothing but a mud pit. There's many cons about it. We understand that it's maybe cheaper or less costly at the beginning to put turf in and do all the grading and all that kind of mitigation, soil mitigation. But in the long term, is not. We want to work with you, and not just from the ANC, but even from the SIT team or for the Merch community on how to get a turf, AstroTurf or synthetic turf field back on site.
Speak there quickly.
Sure.
So from DCPS side, we've actually instructed DGS that we would prefer a turf field.
Artificial or natural?
Artificial turf
yeah.
in there. The one thing that they're going to start studying now is what the impacts are to the stormwater calculation.
That's the next question. Okay.
So we're in agreement with you that we'd like the turf
Thank
field
you.
in there.
That's going to allow a lot of angst to go away.
Yeah, so we're going to push forward as far as we can on that.
Okay.
And
great, thank you. And we can get into the nitty-gritty about the other paving, about the basketball, et cetera. I would like to make one last comment, is that, Ronnie, you said that there would be partial replacement of the retaining walls around the site. Is it going to be total replacement?
Everything will go into regrade the ones that, when we do have site differences, new retaining walls will put in, not repair it.
Okay, good, because those walls were put in 20 years ago by us, and they're at their end's life now. So we want to be sure that that's going to be addressed, both on 36, Ellicott, and Reno. Okay. And thank you. And I look forward to our meeting.
I just have one really quick question. I know the kids are all over at UDC, in the temporary space. So what's happening right now?
On the site?
Yeah.
So we have an interior demolition permit for the existing building. So they've started the interior demolition of the building that faces 36th Street. So much of the work in the north wing is completely demolished, and includes walls and ceilings. They've started the pavements, removal of hazardous material. In that wing, they've started demolition in the south wing. So that work's going to continue for the next few weeks. We are tracking to hopefully get our foundation and grade permit in the next few weeks. We'll be able to start working.
This is the picture.
Oh.
Inside.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, so it's a different place. Right now, it's an open space complex.
Actually, go team! I kind of like it.
Yeah, no,
it's
the
Steel Lafayette.
There's a lot of history there, but it's
Yeah.
good to get the project starting to work.
Yep.
Sally mentioned this project team has been on it for 2 years, but I think the context folks may not know is there's been a few stop-starts along the way, so it's not like they've been in a defensive riding the team. There was some budget discussion where we sort of had to pause and rethink and restart. So while it seems like we've had a long time, once we get restarted, it's been a fast go, and Ryan and his team are working around the clock to get this.
We know.
And
like
what
I
is
said,
the?
one of the things you brought up, we are already working on to mitigate, so we talk about the solution to it.
Okay, well, that's great. I mean, we're having this conversation.
So what is the timeline, like when the kids would actually move back in?
So summer of 2018.
2018.
August 2018.
19
Yeah.
school year.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dickinson, you had a question?
Yeah, first, it's nice to see you again, Lonnie. We spent a long time together over at Hearst Elementary, and I'll just provide a reference for you that it was a great experience, and thank you again for that. And I think you were very responsive to the Hearst PTA while I was PTA president over there, and certainly for a number of years afterwards as the project commenced and was completed. I have to personally express a little bit of disappointment. I know I've only been on the ANC since April or so, but I think this is the first time I've really seen any detailed plans with regard to merge. I don't know if the rest of the ANC has been exposed to this. So I know that there are a lot of questions, and I know you're under time constraints, and given my Hearst experience, I understand those. But I just personally want to express my disappointment. I think that for me, still, despite the Hearst experience still being in a learning curve mode here, I'm not sure exactly what you're putting in front of for public space approval in December. What features you're looking for the ANC to weigh in on? Is it the curb cuts on Reno? Is it the parking issues? Is it on 36th Street? Is it I don't think it's the traffic control plan. Is it the stormwater issue features on Davenport and Ellicott? It's kind of unclear to me. And I know that there's been a discussion of whether we, excuse me, it's late in the evening, whether we would have a separate meeting to flesh out some of that. But what I'm hearing from some of the other commissioners is there are also just a variety of other issues associated with the school and the project. And I certainly I could spend 2 hours and come up with 30 questions myself. Not all of them are ANC worthy or public space issues, but a lot of them do affect the community. And out of fairness and due process to the community, I don't know how many of the neighbors really know what's going on here. I know they've been involved in the SIP process and community meetings, but as an ANC, I'm not sure that they've been notified of this and know that we're considering these public space issues. And if it were me tonight, I'd vote no, just on that basis alone. So, again, I'm very appreciative and sympathetic to this school process and the tremendous amount of work you're going through. But for me, it's personally, I'm just not clear of the process going forward. So I don't know, others, Sally and Malachi maybe are more familiar with this, or what the next steps are before the December Public Space Committee hearing, but it's extremely unclear to me.
Well, I have to say, part of the process of what we're showing here, part of the elements we're showing, is the elements that you would see in public space as you walk down the sidewalk. So a lot of it's on the top of the school. So it takes defining actually what is under public space review versus what is viewable for public space. We can define it out, maybe get rid of some of the issues that are not on the table with public space. So
some of that might be ongoing, but in terms of your immediate needs sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of your immediate needs for December, I think that would be helpful.
What we have is a list.
We do have a list.
Patrick did prepare a list for us of all the things that are under consideration. And so what I propose we do, and the purpose of tonight's meeting was to make this presentation to the community so that the community is aware that these things are on the table. And then we will sit down with you separately and go through that list. And before we have that meeting, we will prepare our questions. We'll read through the plans as best we can, prepare our questions. And we'll sit down, go through that list, and just hash through each one.
We would love that. Yeah. So
I mean, the meeting is also a give and take. I mean, some of it is you're going to have to explain some things to the commissioners.
Understood. Yeah.
I may know a lot, Malachi may know something else, David will know something else, but we need to be consistent.
Completely understood.
And understand it.
Yeah, so we're happy to provide whatever background you need for the project. We did provide a list that or the public space items, we provided a narrative that goes along with that. But again, we're happy to meet and talk
In your
through
defense,
that.
you did, and
No,
they
no,
all,
no,
they
no.
all haven't seen
I
it.
don't need defense.
Okay. In your defense, you did,
Yeah.
because we asked you for it,
Yeah,
so thank you.
so we're happy to meet with you all.
Sorry, yeah, I've
No,
just seen it.
fair enough.
Yeah.
So why don't we, when we finish up here, we'll sit down with calendars and figure out a
Yeah.
time that we can all
Great.
in the next 2
We've been
weeks.
submitting this for months back and forth. Because like I said, the lack of testimony to you is different than us preparing. So we've been a lot of stuff, working on this for months and responding to not only sit and see and reviewers
To top,
detailed
well, yeah.
information. So we're sort of disappointed too that it hasn't been put out to the public side. 'Cause we're thinking it is by sending it to them, but we'll do what we have to do. Thank you. Beautiful grounds.
Okay, so we don't have a resolution tonight. Like I say, we'll find a time in the next 2 weeks to sit down and go through that list of the detailed narrative. And then we'll come back with a resolution before you have to take it to public space. So be that in December or January.
When's the meeting in December, their meeting?
Right now it's the 15th.
Yeah,
15th.
just to give folks background, the original public space meeting was supposed to be on
Sweet.
December
22nd.
And then it
Yes.
got moved to the 15th because of the holiday, and that created a 30-day.
That creates a 30-day
issue.
problem. So.
Right.
Yeah, because we saw it, just so you know, we
No,
were
we're-
checking it, and it was the 22nd, and so we didn't think it was a problem.
And we're,
And,
to be honest for the public, we're just as disappointed as
yep,
So, but we want to work and get you guys what you need.
so we were on target with you guys,
Yeah, yeah.
because we decided to have our meeting on the 20th.
We'll compare calendars and
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Wait, before you go, are there any questions from the community? Nothing.
Something I have me at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, you got your bike lights?
That's
Here's your
right.
bike lights.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so we'll move on then. David, are you going to speak to Hearst Park, or do you want to save that for another time?
I can just make a few general comments, and I said this at the outset in the commissioner announcements. A couple different things. There had been an expectation, and I followed the planning construction schedule, if you will, on the DGS website for Hearst Park, and the sort of planning phase had informally commenced in May and June, and there was a somewhat significant planning meeting in September, and it's essentially been silence since then from DGS and DPR in terms of when and how a public survey would be distributed, when the next public planning meeting would take place. I know that several neighbors and the neighbors of Hearst Park have reached out to Councilmember Che and to me and also to DGS and DPR to explore other potential sites for a pool. And I'll pass on that the neighbors of Hearst Park have been anxious to understand what the process will be for DGS and DPR to assess those other sites and whether they're going to do that and how they'll feed back to the community and potentially the ANC. I had invited DGS and DPR to present tonight, and then was also told that they would give me a written report update, which they haven't done. I'm not sure, Patrick, when the next monthly update will be on their hydrology stormwater assessment, but we had passed a resolution.
We haven't gotten a first.
We do have the first one.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we received that from Jackie Stanley of DGS.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
pass it back along. But so, you know, I think I share the community's frustration in transparency on the process and being assured that we're getting the right feedback from DGS and DPR, and that the ANC will continue to be informed. I'm planning, and I'd hope to do it tonight, but certainly at the December meeting, and if there are others from the neighborhood who want to weigh in on what a resolution would look like, I'd certainly want to pass a resolution that I don't know, strongly requires DGS and DPR to start coming to each ANC meeting with an update. With all respect to the merge process, I don't want that to happen to Hearst Park. There are too many people with too many different views on the swimming pool, too many different views on a variety of other improvements that could be made to the park, whether it's, you know, the existing playground, stormwater issues, etc. So that's my plan, to introduce that resolution. I've been asked to lead an effort on a resolution to require, these are my words, not the community's, but to require DGS and DPR to do this site assessment for a site at the north end of Lower Archibald. I personally am not prepared to propose that to the commission as part of a resolution. I'm still on a fact-gathering mode with the Park Service and with DGS and DPR to see what they've done. If the neighbors feel that that's an inadequate process, or they're not getting the necessary information, or if I independently get that, then I think that's fair game for discussion for a resolution in December as well. So that's it from me. I think there might be others. If I may, Malik, I don't know if anyone else in the audience would like to comment or have some questions.
Anyone? Okay, thanks for that update.
Sure.
It's dismaying to hear that there's radio silence.
Yeah, and you know, I had met with DGS and DPR along with the outgoing commissioner in, I think it's at ANC 3C, Margie Siegel, and really walked through a lot of the concerns, respectfully from our ANC, but also the ANC south of the park, and got, you know, we didn't see the survey per se, but we got an idea of what they would be asking, and making sure the community had a true opportunity for input. I think separately there have been efforts to look at other potential sites, but there just hasn't been a reasonable amount of updating and communication. So I think the ANC can prove a valuable role in requiring them to come forward to us, or at least strongly requesting they do.
I may make a comment. Thank you, David, for that
Sure.
report. I'm Harry Martin. I'm a board member of Neighbors for Hearst Park. We have 120 families in our group, and we're dedicated to preserving the park. We all live south of, we're in ANC 3C, although some of us are in Springwood Lane, too, in your area. So we just want to see what happens, and with the process, we've had meetings with all the at-large council members. Phil Mendelson came to the park on October 30th and met with us for an hour. There were about 25 of us there on Saturday morning. It's not for lack of trying to try to bring us to a successful conclusion for everyone. So we'll continue to march, and appreciate David's efforts, particularly on the hydrology front.
Thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's a long wait, but thank you.
All right, anything else?
No.
Okay, so that brings us to our last agenda item, which is other business. So we'll start with the approval of the minutes. You have 2 sets.
Yes, so we have minutes from July and September that were circulated to the commissioners. I have some suggested changes in the September minutes from Commissioner Nugent related to itemizing the consent agenda in that first initial table. That's been done, and I have some adjustments that were just suggested by Commissioner Gresham. So I move that the amendments for both months with the minutes for both months with the amendments that I just mentioned be approved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. And then October and November we'll do next month.
Yes.
Okay. So in the absence of a treasurer, we don't have a treasurer's report tonight. So we'll just note that our next meeting is set for December 20th. That's what we had agreed a couple weeks ago. And it will be here at Forest Hills at DC. We will continue to meet here next month, and we will make the move to UDC with our starting with our January meeting. Any other business anyone wants to raise?
Do we want to consider doing it on the 13th, December 13th, to make the 15th, or do we want to? Because it's still
I thought they moved
not
it to
at
the
that
22nd.
30-day.
From the 22nd to the 15th.
Oh, okay.
I won't be here on the 13th. I'll be traveling.
Oh, I thought you were that Monday.
I could do it on the 12th.
12th. Okay, sorry.
Are you looking at that date instead of a meeting on
The
regarding
20th.
merch, or is that?
Yeah.
No, we have a meeting on have a separate meeting on merch, address all our concerns, and then have a public meeting on the 12th to pass a resolution in time
Right.
for the meeting on the 15th. Or we just tell DDOT, you can't consider
Can't.
this on the 15th because you haven't given us our due 30 days.
30 days.
The 12th is a Monday.
And then we force
Right.
them to push it to the January meeting.
Right.
Because he leaves now.
Why did they move up their meeting? Just because of the holiday?
Probably because of the holidays.
Well, they had moved the one for Thanksgiving, but they had not moved the one for Christmas until just recently. So,
sorry.
a lot of people didn't know that.
Are these public space considerations, and again, I know there's a list here, and I apologize for not having reviewed that, but respectfully, a lot of times this is much ado about nothing, and that I don't know how many of these are issues with regard to the construction phasing and which ones are long-term public space access, like the curb cut on Reno for parking long-term. Do we know how many of these are really critical for them to put a shovel in the ground in January or anything, or are these just more generic public space issues?
What
that can
Patrick
wait?
said to me is they have to get the public space approval in order to get the permits they need, the building permits that they need to proceed.
Correct. That is
So-
correct.
And there's something, you mentioned something with the utilities as well. They have to have all the public space stuff in order.
I mean, they
for
can
the
be
utilities.
they can be applying for the permits.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
my
we're
understanding.
under no obligation.
Right. I mean, they can
to
be
move our meeting.
Right. They can start applying for permits. I mean,
I think-
they've already probably started that procedure.
I think we should plan to meet on the 20th, and then if there's a reason for us to do something before the 20th, we could consider a special meeting just to consider a resolution.
If you've got a sense, say we have a meeting, I don't know, hypothetically December 3rd, a special meeting on just merge
Right.
with these folks, and we get a better sense of.
Copacetic, then we could have a special meeting. We could try to move our meeting back. We could make it work.
Right.
To meet the 15th if
it's critical.
if all of our concerns were addressed.
But is the meeting that we're going to have our small task force, or do we want the whole commission to be involved in this meeting?
Anybody who wants to come, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, because you all could have questions too. I know you're not as
No, I think the more the merrier.
invested in it, but
Okay, so we'll keep it at the 20th. Our next meeting will be December 20th here at Forest Hills, DC.
Okay.
Make sure Dave knows that. Okay. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Tell